It's Saturday, May 31st, 2025, and we've got a lot of weather to talk about today, so let's dive right into it. Starting off with our Day 1 SPC convective outlook here, we do have a slight risk of severe thunderstorms today in Oklahoma and a little bit of Kansas and Texas, mostly around Oklahoma City, up there towards Tulsa, Wichita. Marginal surrounds that from Dallas up to Kansas City. We've got another marginal risk over here in eastern Kentucky, over into Virginia. Some of the places that were hit hard yesterday by some strong storms are under the gun today for some rumbles of thunder as well, like Washington, D.C., up towards Philadelphia, and then down here towards Virginia Beach and pretty much the entire state of North Carolina. And we're going to have some pretty strong storms today down here in Florida. Nothing crazy, but those afternoon downpours and gully washers are definitely going to be a problem for us. Tornado threat across the U.S. today is pretty tame, except for in that slight risk over here in Oklahoma and Kansas. There is a 2% probability of some isolated tornadoes. Now, here's what your radar could look like as we go through the day today. This is about 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have some downpours over here in Florida, of course, some leftover rain in the northeast. That's going to slowly move off to the north and east, but notice what happens here where we've got some of this cooler air pushing down from Canada, meeting up with some residual warm air that's kind of built up in the central and southern portions of the U.S. We're going to see lots of bubbling storms right in this region, and that's why we have that initial marginal risk over there in the east. And these could bring about some hail and some isolated downpours as they form up, so keep your eyes on those as I push this forward. And then also notice that this little disturbance, we talked about this yesterday, there's this little disturbance in the jet stream that's going to be sliding down the eastern side of our ridge that's bringing about all this warm air in the west. That's going to lead to some severe thunderstorms in Kansas and Oklahoma and eventually down towards Texas. That's what's leading to our marginal and slight risk over there. It does look to me like this is by far going to be mostly a hail and wind problem, but there is a very small chance that we see some tornadic activity out of this cluster of storms as well as it moves down towards Texas by 8 a.m. Honestly, it's going to take a while for this to happen. The storms won't really start popping up until maybe 9 or 10 p.m. tonight. They'll move through Tulsa maybe around 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. So this is going to be a very late night, early morning kind of thing. And then the storms are pretty much going to fizzle out before they get to the DFW metro, but they might re-spark up a little bit before making it back down there towards Houston as we go into the day on June 1st. But for the most part, everywhere is pretty quiet right now. Outside of that, we do have some moisture really streaming in from the Pacific into the southwestern portions of the U.S., which is going to be a welcome relief for some, and we'll talk a lot more about that right here in a minute. But things get really interesting here in the central U.S. on the Day 3 outlook. So this is Monday, June 2nd. We've got a slight risk over here from portions of Colorado all the way up through Nebraska and South Dakota, and a marginal risk that expands from Canada all the way down into the panhandle of Texas. And this is going to be driven by a series of disturbances that are going to interrupt this very persistent ridge that we've had in the west. Notice how we've got this little dip in the jet stream up here. We've got this closed off system down here. Both of these are going to be doing work on all of the compiled heat and moisture that has been building up underneath that ridge. And they're going to cause essentially two separate but also similar rounds of thunderstorms. The first one being on June 2nd up here in the north. And then the second one is going to take place on the 3rd, which is likely going to be a much more widespread and robust area of thunderstorms. And that's going to be happening on Tuesday. So the main threat here, I think, is going to be very large hail and damaging winds. But I think with this system, we do have a better chance of seeing some tornadoes, especially as we go into the day on Tuesday. So notice that this pattern that we're locking into here doesn't stop there. We're actually going to see continued little disturbances come through and kick up some of that moisture and bring about more tornado chances to the Great Plains over the next several days. This is actually looking like it's going to be one of the more active periods that we've seen in June as far as tornadoes and severe weather goes. It's one of the more active periods I've seen forecasted in a while. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center already has that Day 4 slight risk of severe weather from Madison, Wisconsin, all the way back down into north central portions of Texas. Oklahoma City's included in that, Tulsa, Joplin, Jefferson City, St. Joseph, Kansas City, Burlington, all the way up there through Cedar Rapids. So this is going to be a day where we're almost certainly going to go live for this, and the severe weather could be quite intense. It just depends on how unstable the atmosphere is, and given the fact that it's June, it's probably going to be pretty unstable. We talked yesterday about how much moisture is going to be available, which is something that we normally don't have whenever these kinds of systems move through in the spring. So this is why we're kind of concerned about this being a widespread severe weather event. So we'll break down those details for you whenever the HRRR is in range and whenever we've got more data. But right now, it's just an early heads up. Get ready. Severe weather is coming. And it's not just severe weather. We're also going to have a pretty good amount of rain falling here, especially in Nebraska between North Platte and Ainsworth and places like Sioux Falls. We could see anywhere between an inch to 3, maybe 4 inches of rain in some of these places, and it's all going to fall in a very short period of time. So that is going to lead to a flash flooding risk. We actually have a slight excessive rainfall risk from the Weather Prediction Center out here in the yellow from Fort Morgan, Colorado, up past Broken Bow, and then Vermilion, and then Sioux Falls. You're also included in that. So if you live in a flood prone area, make sure you're paying attention to those flash flood warnings as they come out. And by the way, isn't this map just beautiful? Wouldn't you like to look at this map anytime it gets updated yourself, and then be able to just flip over to the radar and, look at that and have a great time with monitoring the weather? Well, you can now, thanks to our sponsor, which we are shouting out right now. WeatherWise, super resolution real-time radar. Now, there's a bunch of good radar apps out there, but this one is just as good as, if not better than, the best one. And guess what? It's free. You get super res and fast weather radar for 11 countries. We're talking storm tracks, we're talking lightning data, reflectivity, velocity, correlation coefficient, real-time, very fast warnings from the National Weather Service. You can look at SPC outlooks, and once again, it's free. You can get it on iOS or Android, and you can even load it up on your browser right now, weatherwise.app. There is a paid version of the app. Inside the app, you can get a plus subscription. We're talking about 3D globe projections, 3D radar. We can do split view with the radar, so we can look at reflectivity and velocity at the same time. And probably my favorite part about the plus subscription is y'all mode. So if you've watched our live streams before and you really like the way my map looks, you can just click a button and your radar now looks exactly like mine, which actually makes it a lot easier to follow along if you're watching one of our live streams. So once again, weatherwise.app in your browser, or just click the link down in the description. Thank you all for going over there and supporting the app. There's already hundreds of thousands of people who absolutely love it, and if you haven't tried it yet, I think you're going to love it too. Link in the description. Let us know what you think about it. And now let's get back into the video. All right, so we're about to have a pretty active period with severe weather here, as we've got these disturbances coming over the Rockies and then disturbing all of the convective available potential energy and high dew points that we're going to have building up over here in the south, thanks to a lot of moisture and instability that's coming out of the Gulf. But speaking of the Gulf and all the instability down there, keep your eyes on Florida as I push the GFS very far into the future. You're going to notice something. Bada bing, bada boom. What the heck is that? Is that a tropical system potentially on June 10th in Florida? Well, this is something that has actually been showing up on the past couple of runs of the GFS. There's actually some consistency here. There's no consistency in the strength or the exact placement of this, but something is definitely brewing down here in the Caribbean and towards the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, this specific system is spawning in the Caribbean, moving up past Cuba, and then moving up towards Florida in this run of the GFS. I've seen other versions where it goes a little bit more into the middle of the Gulf. I've seen some where it fizzles out before it even gets to Cuba. I don't want to talk too much about this, but it is a good reminder that, hey, we're entering tropical season, so we've got to start thinking about this stuff. We've actually got a really good chance of a tropical system forming on the south and western side of Mexico that will probably turn into a pretty strong storm, but it more than likely won't make landfall anywhere, because we have really favorable conditions for tropical activity right here in this region. You can see this on the tropical cyclone formation outlook here over the next 3 weeks. This is from the Climate Prediction Center, and this, we can see this on WeatherWise. 40% tropical cyclone formation area down here, and then of course a 20% all the way over into the Gulf. So definitely something that we've got to keep an eye on. I mean, right now we still have Tropical Storm Alvin over here moving up towards the Baja Peninsula with winds still cranking around 52 miles per hour. So definitely an early start to some interesting stuff down here in the tropics, and we'll be keeping an eye on it. And that's all the weather talk I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Huge shout out to WeatherWise for sponsoring. I really think that you guys are going to love it. If you haven't tried it out yet, you definitely should. Link in the top of the description, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.